Hello and welcome to Bleeding Tree Gaming. My name's Amy, aka Warpfiend, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Luke, aka Sir Mime.
And today we're taking another look on new AOS 4.0 rules. And there has been some blinders this week. We've seen, well, since we did the last episode, we've seen combat changes as well as magic. So... let's take a look at both of those and
delightful magic phase.
Yep. Okay, so first of all, they showed us like the basic combat things they're now abilities like everything else. They've tried to keep everything to this ability format, which is cool. I like that, it's just one easy to recognize thing. I do wonder if, like, reading through the rules, it might just be a bit like repetitive. Oh, there's just text box after text box after text box.
I wonder how it is going to appear in the actual, full-on edition guide rules book.
Definitely interested about that. So you can see charge is fairly much the same.
Yeah.
Must end within half an inch of a visible enemy unit. So. What was it before, an inch?
I think it had been half an inch for.
Oh, it was half an inch. So yeah, that's fairly much the same. And fight, there's no specific differences that's going to make in terms of that word in there. I don't know.
So I think I don't know the pile-in thing later on. I'm not sure with that. The wording seems slightly different on it now, but. Actual fighting just seems exactly the same.
Yeah, so it's very similar. It's just kind of reworded in this nice kind of snappy way. And yeah, like I say, it could be positive. So obviously they're kind of highlighting that there's no more start of phase or end of phase and having to work out which abilities take priority. It's the active player uses any of their abilities in whatever order they want. And then their opponent does the same.
Yeah, at the minute, I think it's only, there's the odd rules and things where depending in the order you do them, it can be vastly different the outcome on them. But
yeah, I mean, it's a frequent inhabitant of the FAQs, just like, what order should I do X in?
It's just nice and simple. Everything at one point, and it decides what will happen fighting afterwards.
Yep. And you can see like the two abilities they've shown here, the Ardboy's Shield Bash and the Blood Sisters Crystal Touch. So it's like you declare and then the effect happens.
I'm really liking these like anti-charge abilities that they're putting into this edition. Like, the Ardboy's Shield Bash is like a really thematic thing of they're the ones being charged and they're just smashing the enemy away at the last minute.
Yeah. I did kind of think like it's a little bit of a downgrade from last edition in that like you can only use the shield when they get charged, as far as this shows anyway. But on the other hand, it's nice that their special thing is literally just being your anvil, getting charged and having like a rock hard defense that then pours back wounds onto the enemy.
I'd say they're going to be at the front of your army now, aren't they? Just being like your big screen.
Yeah, very much so. So like again, it's only on a 6 that it does damages, much the same as it was in the last edition. But yeah, it's a 3 mortal wound if you can roll any of those 6s. And
it's before combat starts as well, so if you get lucky, there's less attacks coming at you. and then the Blood Sisters one seems really good. Like.
Yeah. So you just literally have to roll over the target's health.
Yeah. So you're against one health unit, you're pretty much going to get it. It's like...
Yeah, that seems just like a really cool way of introducing like a strike last effect, basically.
At the moment, like they have the option of doing a couple of mortal wounds after all the fighting's done. But I'd say giving something strike last is
Yeah,
going to be a lot more powerful.
That's going to be great, and you want to be charging them against like fairly low wound stuff, like probably like a Stormcast unit's the most you want to risk it on. I wouldn't go for like any cavalry or anything like that when you're talking like 5 or more wounds.
You never get it against a monster, but I mean, you know, worst comes to worst, you're in combat against like a 5 wound hero. You've always got the chance of rolling a 6.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice, and it kind of like I like the way a lot of these abilities seem to target things against like weaker foes, basically. It means like they can't use like absolutely game-breaking abilities on your like 500-point general or whatever.
I don't think giants are in any danger of the
No. So
nice little flow here, haven't we?
So after you use your combat phase abilities, the opponent uses their combat phase abilities, and then you alternate using fight, starting with the active player. So fairly much the same. Obviously, the active player would obviously fight first, especially assuming they charged and stuff. It doesn't seem to say. Now, I don't know if you saw this and I missed it, but it doesn't seem to say anything about like all the units that have charged are still obviously fighting first before it goes to that, or if it's just
no. It does just seem exactly as it is now. Like even if you've charged a unit, you're not guaranteed to attack first with them over the enemy.
Yep.
Which again, I like it. It just seems like there's much more of a decision of how much you want to charge in one go and where you want to activate first. It's
yeah. And they've just again confirmed here, like units can't make shooting attacks if they're in combat unless their weapons have the shooting combat ability. And I believe in the next article there is someone that has the that ability.
A lovely little example.
Yep. So yeah, it all seems like, cutting the fat. It's fairly similar rules. There's not a huge amount that's changed so far. Pile-in moves are now obviously with all fight abilities. This is just before the combat. You're not getting people as far as we know, you're not getting people like pile in before combat and then pile in afterwards or so. Maybe there's special abilities. We don't know yet.
I was like, Skaven at the minute have got a weird one where, like, if something piles in, then the whole army can essentially pile in at the same time.
Yes,
it's very weird.
I'm interested to see the kind of stuff that Skaven are going to get. Some sneaky tricks.
Yes, later on in the end of this article, is hinted at one of their little sneaky tricks as well, isn't it?
So yeah, the particular language of this is like the move can pass through the combat ranges of enemy units, but each model must end that move no further from the target unit.
Yeah. Pretty much the same as it is now. You can tag other things in with your pile in, but you have to make sure that the models haven't moved further away from what they started up against, really.
Yeah. The thing that's I think this works slightly different to the current one in that your unit must still be in combat with all units that it was in combat with at the start of the move. So you can't pile in to be in combat with another unit and be out of combat with the original one.
Yeah, because at the moment, if you are within 3 of something, but that's further away from you than the thing you're against, you can pile away out of combat from there and basically be safe from being hit back by one of the units.
Yeah. And then there's this little extra sentence that's if your unit is not in combat, you could just pile 3 inches in any direction.
I assume this is meant to mean that if it started off in combat range.
Yeah.
But it's weirdly written here. Like, like I was saying to you when we first saw it, the way it's written is like, it doesn't even mention anything about having to be in combat range to start off with. So
yeah, I'm interested to see what kind of circumstances that would apply to, and I think there needs to be a bit more clarification on that in the actual rules.
I was being very facetious. I'd say any unit on the battlefield can move 3 inches because it's not in combat.
Yes,
But I know that's not what they mean.
Yeah, so definitely want a bit more clarification there.
We got to hear about critical hits again. They had mentioned it before, I think, with some kind of weapon ability examples they'd done on previous posts.
Yeah, so mortal wound's been renamed mortal damage. Who cares? Different words, exactly the same. But yeah, the fact that so many things have abilities that trigger on a 6, it does make sense to have this critical hits. It makes sense, like, to just like a gamer's brain, basically. We all know what a critical hit is, and I think kind of codifying it under this one like special thing that, you know, all troops get instead of something like specific to certain kinds of troops, which they can then build on later with other abilities.
They chop and change the little why is the word gone out of my head? the modules.
Yeah. They're capping rend at +1 currently.
Yeah, it's the same as it is now. You can have multiple things to stack it, but you'll never be better than +1 to your actual unit's initial save.
Yep. So you can't do save stacking, basically.
Yeah. Interestingly, then they say that there's very few ways of actually doing any kind of save stacking in this edition, which we know Stormcast now have their finest hour as a kind of battle trait, as opposed to it actually being a heroic action.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I think in the spell one, it's very much hinted that there's no Mystic Shield. I didn't see anything anywhere about any kind of general spells like that, but we'll get to that later on.
Yes. So they explain the way that damage is allocated now. So instead of just like allocating it to one model, you collect the damage points for the unit, and when the total amount of damage points equals the health characteristic, you can choose to choose which model to remove as usual.
It's again, it's a very weirdly worded means. I can see the justification behind it and know what they're getting at. It's like, but then do you sit there with a D20 or something, counting all the wounds you've taken, and then?
My guess is you would just use a dice next to the unit as you do now, but you don't have to worry about like, oh, was the dice next to that guy or next to that guy? So that just seems like a simplification to me, but it's not. It's never been like a major problem. I can see like in certain situations there might be a point where like a game hinges on, oh no, did I give the damage to that guy or that guy? But it's not like in every single game, like constantly thinking. It's just like a quality of life change, I think.
I feel like it's a lot more beginner friendly, that you might have accidentally have allocated the wound to like your banner man or something, because at the time you didn't want to break the coherency with whatever, and it just seems like you can just pick and choose what you've taken out when you want it, really, so there's not going to be too many issues. And then we get some lovely new War Scroll examples down here as well.
So this is trying to separate, like, it says, for example, the difference between a hammer or one with a spear, and it's stuff like this anti-charge, which is just an ability that triggers on the charge, in this case, +1 rend. I don't know if there'll be other variations of that.
Which is really interesting, like Vindicators going up to rend 2 if they've been charged. It's
Yeah.
It's a good job they're only 1 damage apiece.
And then you have the hold the shield wall ability as well. If this unit did not charge and is in combat with a unit that charged it this turn, roll a dice. On a 4+, they get the strike first.
Again, like the Yard Boys, it's like it's a brilliant thing to keep them out in front to stop someone from just charging you.
Yep. It is like the combination ability of those two ones we saw earlier, basically. Yeah, it's triggered on the
50-50
charge,
chance of them getting strike first, and then they'd like Ren 2 on the attacks into someone. It's
yeah, you'd be crazy to charge
tasty.
Vindictus unless you're forced into it.
And this second War Scroll, it's just like looking at it over and over again. It's like I don't know. Obviously, what points are they going to be going into this edition? Because this just seems ludicrously good compared to what they are now.
Oh yeah. So first of all, they're up to 6 health now.
We were also happy when they went to 5 health.
Yeah. They count as 2 models on an objective, and they have this anti-infantry +1 rend. So that would give them Ren 2 against any infantry.
The regular Kroxigor at the minute only have like Ren 1, and then the Warspawn have Ren 2.
Yeah.
But now the regular Kroxigor can get Ren 2 against any infantry, and all of their weapons have gone down to wounding on a 2 as opposed to a 3 now.
Yes, that's the other thing. Wound on a 2 up, so that is going to be wounding a lot.
And then it does an extra damage on each of the weapons if the enemy's got 10
or more models. Yeah, you're going to want to be charging into those big units with your Kroxigor now and just like smashing away with those hammers like Sauron at the start of Lord of the Rings. Like
flat 3 and flat 4 damage. It's just absolutely insane.
I'm interested to see how this is balanced because, that is very powerful.
Because, the last battle scroll unexpectedly dropped on us as well, and currently they've dropped in points again for both the regular Kroxigor and the Warspawn Kroxigor, so I don't think going into 4th with this profile are going to be as cheap as they're making them out in this new battle scroll update.
No, it's hard to see how they could possibly be. Unless everything else is way more powerful than we've seen so far. We also have the coherency range, which is just a bit tighter. It's fairly much what 40k is. It's like 1/2-inch coherency. You must remain... It says actually models must remain within range of at least one other model in the unit, and if they're 7 or more, they must remain within 2.
Yeah.
So that's basically exactly the same as 40k.
Yeah, it's just keeping in line with like the battle scroll update we had like 2 or 3 battle scroll updates ago.
Yes.
And then it mentions like Stormdrake Guard and things are obviously going to have rules for larger coherency spaces to make use of their giant wings and things that they have.
Yeah, you can't exactly put these like 1/2 an inch apart; they won't fit. There's no difference. It's measured just horizontally, so height differences don't matter either.
And then this is a biggie at the end. It's retreating.
Yep.
Retreating's not just free to do anymore. You're gonna hurt yourself getting out of combat now.
It's in the movement phase like you would normally like exit a combat, but it costs D3 mortal damage. So this is interesting. There doesn't seem to be any other information listed on whether you have ways of negating that. Like, although it says
some Skaven might have the ability to get out.
Yes, yeah. I guess we'll see more on that when it comes, but that's an interesting kind of tactical thing. I'm not a big fan of retreating anyway. If you're in combat, you stay in combat till someone loses.
There's no mucking about in combat.
Yeah, I hate playing the Ultramarines in 40k because they have the free retreat. Tammy's always just like, oh no, I don't care, I'm in combat with you. I'm just going to retreat and shoot you for a bit and then charge again.
But like we were saying as well, it is interesting that, again, it looks like more things to kind of cut down on missile play in 4th edition.
Yes.
Because they already mentioned further up in the article that unless you've got a certain ability, you can't fire into combat like you do at the moment. And if your ranged only unit's been tied up in combat, they've got to take mortal damage to get away from it.
Yeah. So it's like interesting. It's going to be well worth it. It's going to be well worth it charging into that annoying ranged unit. Yeah. So moving on then, that's all the combat stuff they've shared. Today, they just showed us this about the sorceries and prayers.
Oh, I kind of wish there was something about the Slan teasing me with a picture of him on there, but I think it's more to do with their little fluff here talking about walking in the shadows of gods and things in the mortal realms.
Yes. So the actual casting thing is very much the same. It's just 2d6. You get the keyword wizard, as we saw in the Nagash's War Scroll. Wizard with a number which states your level. Now, this is the level, the amount of total spell casts, unbinds, and banish. So
banish is I quite like the fact that it's called banish now, because what was it? It was unbind and dispel before, and it was very banish. Definitely sounds a lot more. You know that's banishing an endless spell or something now. Dispelling before, sometimes I got confused with unbinding when I was trying to think of the term.
Yeah. So you'll notice like the Weird Knob Shaman has only got one, so he can either cast a spell or banish or unbind. And apart from this ability, which like he gets an extra power level if he's near a unit of 10 or more Iron Jaws. So that's like a handy little thing. But that kind of still puts him below what I'd imagine a lot of sorcerers are, which kind of fits in with the green skin thing. He's not very powerful. He can do one thing per turn. Seems a little disappointing, but I would have. It would be nice if.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it would have been nice if he could maybe like do a dispel, a spell, and then like got an extra one from brutal power. But I guess it makes sense.
I mean, at the minute, I think you can do like a teleporting spell with the Iron Jaws. That's all the Weird Knob Shaman's ever really used for, apart from maybe like put Mystic Shield on something.
Yeah, personally, I barely use mine. I mostly go with the War Chanters because they're just cooler.
But he is our example of someone that can. Model. He is the example of someone that can shoot in combat, though.
Yes, I was about to get. He has green puke, which I don't really want to be on the wrong end of this one, to be honest. It sounds quite nasty. So you have 4 attacks within range 10, hits on 2s, wounds on 4s, but then D3 damage each. So
it's a very interesting profile. I mean, like the hitting on 2s parts, like, oh, I'm guaranteed this.
Yeah.
Afterwards, is like...
So you can actually put out quite a bit of damage while you're studying combat just by him vomiting all over everyone. Oh, that sounds interesting. I do like the sound of that. His staff's just about what you'd expect, really, hitting on 4s and wounding on 3s. Again, this one's two models control.
I think that might be like a fairly standard control for like a hero type unit, isn't it? For a smaller type hero unit. But
you're like what do they call them? Just like your base level, ground level hero kind of thing.
And then we got an example of the Iron Jaws spell lore. Because interestingly now, they're saying that you don't actually choose a spell for each wizard. You choose...
Yes.
The way it makes it sound like there is actually going to be multiple spell lores for armies, because they're saying like you just choose a spell lore and then every one of your wizards within the army knows every spell from that lore.
Yeah, the way I read it was like there's like an army spell lore and then there's a bunch of like generic spell lores you can use, but maybe there's more than one spell lore per army.
Yes, later on they definitely do mention like another type of spell lore that you might want to take instead of like the kind of buffing spells and things for the army.
Yeah, so you don't need to keep track of which of your shamans knows the ability. Like, you can, if you take that lore for your army, your sorcerers can use it, but there's restrictions then on like only one sorcerer can use it per turn unless it says unlimited on it.
Oh yeah, and then it's only each sorcerer can cast it once. Like the same sorcerer can't cast the unlimited one more than one time. Apart from the gas, because he breaks those rules on his war scroll.
So you have casting rules on 2d6, and if it includes a double 1, then you take d3 mortal damage, and can't cast any more spells that phase. Yeah, fairly much the same. Let's have a look at this Mighty Headbutt then, because this one seems quite a reasonable one for the
yes, it's 6 to cast. Like if you're doing it against a wizard, it's fairly reasonable damage. It's
Yep. Just being able to do 3 mortal damage on a wizard like that, very handy. Not particularly useful against like your big infantry units, but yeah.
It could have its merits. It's hardly a spell to set the world on fire with, but it could be useful in a pinch if it's like there in your back pocket. Like.
Yes, definitely. So then we have your standard unbind, which is just you basically have to exceed the casting roll. Now, I think that's the casting roll as in what the opponent rolled for it, rather than the actual like the number in the top corner again. So
that'd be horrible if you just had to beat a 6 no matter what the other person.
Yeah, that would make it pretty difficult. So 30 inches. That's the same, right?
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same ability basically. And then you also have the what's it? It's saying about the magical intervention.
Oh yeah, it was a command that you could do in your opponent's hero phase.
Yes.
Cast or chant a prayer, but obviously -1 to your cast or prayer roll.
Now, obviously, it says this one, unlike the other restrictions, you can use Unbind multiple times per phase, even per wizard, but only once per cast.
Yeah.
Which, same as.
And then prayers seem to have changed quite a bit by the looks of it.
So
I've never really had an army that's used prayers so far, so it's all very interesting.
No, I don't know too much about how they currently work, but it's basically you roll a dice now for a certain number of prayer points. Well, we'll get to it in a second. So priests also have an associated power level, and they can use prayer and banish abilities.
Yeah. So it's useful at the minute because priests can dispel endless spells, and by the sounds of it, wizards can banish invocations, which at the minute, invocations are really... If there is a powerful invocation on the board, then there's not really any way of getting rid of it unless there's a rule that makes it disappear.
Yeah, so you can see like this war scroll here doesn't actually have any of the prayers, because I'm assuming that's separate in the prayer laws.
Again, it's like there's a prayer law that you can choose for the army, which then every priest in the army knows.
So you've got on this Corn Slaughter priest in particular, you can use Unbind as if it was a wizard, which I assume is then separate to its spell levels. Like you get a free Unbind from that wording. That's what I'm getting from it.
Scorn Sorcery roll, I can't remember in the recent Blades of Corn book whether the Scorn of Sorcery is just like ignore a spell action on a certain roll, whereas now it seems like it's actually
now it is like just an Unbind. Which makes sense. It's just like kind of compacting the rules a bit. Why do you need a separate way of getting rid of a spell when there's already one there? I can see the point of that. Yeah. So he also has this blood sacrifice ability, which is interesting. Like you can choose to inflict mortal damage on your own troops to gain blood tithes.
Which again, I think at the minute that is actually a prayer in the current Blades of Khorne book.
That is an actual prayer.
But now it's just a thing they can do in the hero phase just to get blood type. Like,
yeah.
Be interesting to see what blood type's like in this edition as well, because there's some very interesting things you can do with those blood type points at the moment.
So here it says, each prayer will ask you to roll a d6 chanting roll, and on a roll of 2+, you gain that many ritual points. Your priest gains that many ritual points, which accumulate over multiple turns. So presumably, like multiple priests will all have their own kind of chanting.
Their own balls to it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which again, I mean, mark it down with a d6 or whatever, or you probably need like 2d6 at least by the sounds of it, because it can go over 8 that you can get in ritual points.
It is a bit of kind of management that I kind of expected that they might want to cut out, having like separate counts for all of them, but it's not really like too big a deal, I'd say.
I think most armies only have like one priest. It's only Khorne where like I think they just give the priest the way. Like.
So you basically have to save up enough chanting points to match the points value on the actual prayer, but a lot of them have things where, for instance, this one on an 8+, you can inflict 3 mortal damage on the target.
Witchbane Curse is really nice in itself, like subtracting 1 from the power level of a wizard to a minimum of 0.
Yeah. So you can strip a wizard of their power, and if you use it on double points, then you can also inflict damage. Which, that could be interesting. I don't know. That's just until the end of your next turn. If you've got a couple of Khorne priests on the table, you could.
Anything with a wizard keyword, you wanted to keep 18 inches away from them. It's like...
Yeah, definitely. So, it's saying like there's obviously risks involved in doing these as well. So a chanting roll of 1 loses your D3 ritual points.
Which, at the minute, you suffer 1 mortal wound if you roll a 1 on your chant.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than like wizards have anyway.
Yeah, it potentially can be. I think this will probably be a bit worse for you, like losing D3 of your ritual points, especially if you roll the big 3 on it. But
and rituals also have no mechanism of being unbound still, which is makes sense. You have to kill them beforehand. So endless spells are now manifestations, which I really, I think that makes sense to call them that. I like the sound of it.
It makes it sound like you've got to give up potentially choosing a spell lore to have your endless spells in the army. And it says that there's no points cost to having the endless spells now. It is just literally giving up 1 spell lore for it.
Yeah, there's nothing that I noticed. You might have noticed something different, but it seems to, like, I read it as manifestation lore you can pick on top of a spell lore, but
I mean that'd be really nice.
There's nothing to say either way, but I don't think it rules either of them out either. So be interested to hear a bit more clarification on that.
And there's just a thing there just going on about like the purple sun and things being in a particular manifestation.
Yeah. Some factions have their own manifestation lore, and obviously there's like the malign sorcery and forbidden power ones. They talk about like there's the morbid conjuration manifestation lore, which isn't too long a name.
Try saying that 3 times.
Morbid conjuration manifestation lore. Morbid conjuration manifestation lore. Morbid conjuration. Oh no. Yeah, so wizards and priests can both use the banish manifestation ability. I can't speak at all now.
I've broken you.
Yes. So it's just like a banishment roll of 2d6, and instead of the casting roll, it's the banishment value listed on the manifestation warp scroll. Yeah.
It is pretty much like it is at the moment. I think.
Yeah.
When you go to cast the spell, I mean, interestingly, the banishment roll, I don't know, because at the minute when you summon the endless spell, people roll off against you to unbind the spell when you're casting it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it's actually on the field in the next hero phase, someone can attempt to dispel it, which will be this banish manifestation. Mm-hmm. But interestingly there, I don't think it particularly says, although it does say your hero phase. Yeah, because it does say in your hero phase. So yeah, once someone's actually summoned it onto the field, they've got until the next hero phase, until you've actually got a chance to actually dispel it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, that's what we've seen so far then. Again, I think it's still building up to be positive. There's a lot of stuff that we still need to be like kind of get clarification on, obviously. But yeah, I'm really interested to try Magic in this new edition, because I think this in particular has caught my attention.
Oh, I'm so glad, because as I was saying to you earlier, like I'd seen GW reply to someone very early on a Facebook thread saying something about Endless Spells still being in the edition.
Yes.
But it's just nice to see that they definitely are in the new edition.
Yes, it is good to see that they're still carrying them on, because I think they're such a cool part of Sigmar, really. Yeah. And they can be kind of game breaking and spammy and stuff, but at the same time, like, you've got a fantasy game, you want big, like a big blood snake coming out of nowhere.
Oh,
I like it. Okay, well, that's the Age of Sigmar 4.0. We've also had some battle scroll updates.
The only major rule change is a couple of units have got some extra range on their attacks, which going into 4th isn't going to make much of a difference because everyone's just got that 3-inch range now.
Yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to read through all of this. I've had a quick skim of it. I couldn't see anything that, like...
The only major change we got is Flesh Eater Courts, because that that command trait was broken anyway.
Yes, I think Flesh Eater Courts have been doing really well since the Codex, the Battle Tome came out.
It's basically people would use a Marascroll Herald, give him this Cruel Taskmaster command thing. You can't target the Marascroll Herald if he's within like something like if it's within 6 inches of like 3 or more Flesh Eater Courts models. So essentially, he's invisible.
Yeah,
and you can just keep on bringing back like the knights. So basically, a horror, a slayer, or a warhead knight. You can bring them back on 1 noble deed point each.
Oh god. So yeah, that makes sense.
Shoot through all those models, and then there's just this Marascroll just going. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, from what I understand, there's been like a little bit of points changes here and there on some stuff, a little bit of rebalancing. I think a lot of people are just kind of looking forward to 4.0 after we've seen all these teasers, and I don't know, learning changes to the current edition while you've only got a couple of months left.
Oh god, I just hope we get at least one more game before the new edition.
I hope so. It's been quite a busy month, and I haven't had a chance to come over and play a game, but fingers crossed soon.
Oh,
yeah, we're definitely looking forward to the open day where the trial games of 4.0.
Oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Gonna be there for that.
We get Spearhead and we get an actual 4th edition game, apparently.
Oh, nice, nice. I'm super looking forward to it. And of course, we will be back to report on what we find out and how we enjoy the game and how it gets along. Well, we've been Bleeding Tree Gaming. I hope you're as excited with the AOS 4.0 as we are. And we look forward to hearing from you in the comments.
I'll say, tell us what you're looking forward to.
Yes, yes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I think I just said that, but I'll say it again. And we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.